It's the 5th grade. Boys will be boys, girls will be girls. Jeff plays basketball and Bradley does his homework. It must be time for another episode of Ultimate Recommendation Book Club, looking at the second part of There's a Boy in the Girl's Bathroom by Louis Sachar. God, I'm a dork. Alright, so when we last left off with There's a Boy in the Girl's Bathroom, Bradley had been given a black eye by a girl and he had turned on his best friend Jeff and blamed him for it rather than admit that he basically got beat up by a girl. Throughout the first part we kind of saw this sort of cycle of goodness and badness happening with Jeff and Bradley. On the one hand, Bradley wanted to be more like Jeff. He wanted to be good, he wanted to try to do his homework, he wanted to get a gold star. But he didn't just want to emulate the good parts of Jeff, he also wanted to emulate what he perceived as the bad parts of Jeff, going into the girls' bathroom and, picking on girls and all that sort of thing. Why did he perceive these things? Because Jeff, in turn, is trying to make himself a little bit more like Bradley so that Bradley will accept him, because at this point Bradley is basically his only friend. And there are quite a few quotation marks around the word friend at this point. So we've got these two kind of going around each other, trying to be each other, and it ultimately culminates in Bradley getting a black eye and blaming it on Jeff. And this is where we pick up with Chapter 16. It's worth mentioning that at the beginning of this section, even though Bradley has blamed Jeff for something that he didn't do, Jeff is still trying to be friends with Bradley, probably because he doesn't really realize that Bradley sold him out. But Bradley has decided that he hates Jeff because Jeff gave him a black eye. Remember, it's not just enough for Bradley to lie, he also makes himself believe the lie. And remember that Jeff is still kind of grasping at straws when it comes to making friends, until he gets a reputation. And he gets a reputation for something he didn't do, but he gladly accepts this reputation. He accepts the lie that Bradley told because this earns him 8 new friends. He does the math and says, okay, I could stay friends with Bradley and have one kind of friend, or I could accept this lie that Bradley told about me and I could gain 8 friends. These friends that he says are like the friends that he had back in DC. And this is kind of the beginning of the transformation, the switching of these two roles. Bradley becoming more like Jeff and Jeff becoming more like Bradley. Bradley becoming considerably better than he was and Jeff becoming considerably worse than he was. Let's start with Bradley. A few chapters in, we see a return to normalcy for Bradley. He hates everybody and everybody hates him. He's in the last seat, last row. He scribbles, he cuts up his tests. He's back to normal. The difference now is that he is a little bit more fearful of people because, first of all, he's afraid that they're going to find out that he was beat up by a girl. And second of all, as things progress, he becomes increasingly afraid of Jeff and his gang. Because what happens is that once people become aware of Jeff's reputation, the fact that Jeff punched Bradley in the eye, which he didn't do, but once they become aware of this reputation, this kind of opens the floodgates. They've all been kind of holding in this hatred towards Bradley, because Bradley is the bad kid and Bradley is a bully, and they probably all got picked on him at one point, but they've all been afraid of him because he's this big, scary 5th grader who should be in 6th grade and all this sort of thing. But now that they know that somebody has stood up to him, allegedly, now all of a sudden everybody feels like, oh, well, he's not so scary, I can go pick on him and bully him like he used to bully me. And so this is the point where Bradley kind of reaches his lowest point. He's back to normal, but it's not normal because suddenly he has to be afraid of people. Suddenly it's not just enough for him to kind of do his own thing. He has to actually be afraid of people and be bullied by people. The bully is now bullied. And this is the point in the story where Bradley really starts to see himself as other people see him. And the term they keep using over and over again is monster. Bradley sees himself as a monster, which is how everybody else sees him. And during one of his sessions with Carla, which is one of the more touching scenes in the book, Bradley is asked to draw a picture, as he so often is, and usually he just scribbles like he does in class, but this time, once again, he does something constructive other than scribbling. He draws a picture of a monster. He draws a picture of how he sees himself, and he says that he hates the picture, he hates the monster, he hates himself. And he asks Carla the question, do you think you can see good in a monster? And Carla responds with, that's all I see, which is really, really indicative of how she sees her students and how she functions as a teacher, basically. So now 3 things happen with Carla's sessions that kind of spell the transformation of Bradley to a bad kid to someone trying to be a better kid. First, the list. Carla asked Bradley to make a list of topics that Bradley would like to talk about, and so he makes this list. And he basically just adds things to the list as he thinks of them throughout the day. And this list is wonderful. It's completely ridiculous. These are topics that either you couldn't talk about or They just are really, really strange. They're bizarre topics, and his sister actually makes fun of him for the list because the list is so bizarre and so abnormal. But the list, if you look at it really carefully, is a really clear indicator of what Bradley is going throughout his day, because he's basically writing down his thoughts as he has them. So we get to see what he's thinking throughout the day and kind of what he's going through throughout the day, which is a really, really great insight on his character. Now, of course, he abandons the list and he throws it away, but what's important is that he's doing something constructive again. He's not scribbling in class, he is working on the list. He is acknowledging his own thoughts and he is putting words to them, which he wasn't doing before. The scribbling was just kind of an empty, amorphous thing that he was doing. Carla is the only person outside of Bradley's family to see any good in him, and Carla is the only person, including Bradley's family, who knows what to do about it. The second thing is actually a few different things. It starts where Bradley actually makes a conscious attempt to be good. He wakes up in the morning and says, I'm gonna be good today, I'm gonna get a gold star, I'm gonna behave myself, everything is gonna be better. And it's worth pointing out that he is basically doing this for Carla. He's not doing it for himself yet, he's not doing it for other people, just Carla, because he is starting to realize that he is falling in love with her. So he tries to be good for a day and it goes completely awry. Everything goes wrong, everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong, and because people don't recognize this yet. They still see Bradley as the bad kid because he's been bad for so long, and so they think that he's up to something when he's trying to be good. And Carla even tells him, you know what? It's gonna take some time. It's gonna take some time for people to recognize the goodness in you and see you as I see you rather than the monster that they see you as right now. And during this disastrous attempt to be good, this is where Bradley becomes the second character to go into the wrong bathroom. He goes into the girls' bathroom because he's trying to run from Jeff's gang. He gets caught, he goes to Carla, and now this is the first time where Bradley really starts to transform with Carla. Before, he was completely cold to her. He wouldn't say hello to her, he wouldn't shake her hand, anything like that, and this time he actually goes to her door and says, hello Carla, nice to see you, puts out his hand for her to shake. So now he is making the initial, let's talk. And he's going to her office during lunchtime. He's going to her office when he does not have to. And we see in this meeting with Bradley and Carla that Bradley gives Carla his first genuine smile, not the fake one with, that's, you know, he can't tell whether it's a smile or a frown. His first genuine smile, and he's completely honest with her now. He's not feeding her a bunch of lies like he was before. He's being completely honest. And Carla suggests, well, maybe a good place to start with making people think that you're good is to do your homework, which is basically what she's been trying to do all along, just get Bradley to do his homework. And so, for Carla's sake, Bradley does his homework. Or at least he tries. But he doesn't know what's going on. He hasn't been paying attention in class, and so he tries to get help from his imaginary animal friends, and it's a complete disaster because they're all these voices in his head are giving him all completely contrary ideas of what he's supposed to do, and it's just completely confusing and he can't take it. And it's worth pointing out that Ronnie, who is basically representative of the goodness in Bradley, is not confusing him, and this is also one of the few times where Ronnie is not in danger. Ronnie is not in danger of dying and has to be saved by her boyfriend. But Bradley is finally forced to seek help from his family, and all three members of his family, his mother, his sister, and his father, all help him with his homework, and he finally understands what it is he's supposed to be doing. And he's the one who explains it to the animal friends. I love the end of that chapter where he's explaining the math to his animal friends. He does the homework, but he doesn't turn in the homework because he's too afraid to, because he just doesn't, he thinks something's gonna go wrong, and he probably, something inside him, doesn't want to leave the familiarity of being the bad kid and cross over into the unfamiliar territory of being the good kid. So he rips it up and throws it away. But, as Carla says, what's important is that you actually did it, and next time it'll be easier and maybe you'll turn it in without ripping it up. That's the second thing. The third thing is the book. Carla gives Bradley a book to read, which he's never really had before. But he starts to believe that this book is magic, and this book is the cause of all the good things that are happening to him, because now people are starting to recognize that maybe he is actually turning over a new leaf. The teachers specifically are starting to recognize, his teacher is starting to recognize that maybe he is becoming a better person. Maybe I can trust him a little bit more now. And so that's Bradley's transformation. Now let's turn to Jeff, because Jeff also has a fascinating transformation in this section, even though he's not in it as much. Just as Bradley tries to become better and better, Jeff is becoming worse and worse. It starts when he gets his new group of friends, and he decides that he is going to forsake Bradley in order to be with his new group of friends. And so now he basically has to treat Bradley like the social pariah that he is. And now that Jeff has these friends and he is fitting in with these friends, he decides he doesn't need to see Carla anymore. And so he goes and basically tells Carla, you know what, I don't need to see you anymore. I'm done with you. We're done. And it's worth pointing out that two things happen with Jeff that are indicative of the direction that his character has taken. First of all, he looks at the girls' bathroom and kind of scoffs at his earlier self that went in there by accident, like, what an idiot. And then he smiles the Bradley smile, stretch his mouth so wide that you can't tell whether it's a smile or a frown smile. And that's the last that we see of Jeff for a while because we're focusing on Bradley in this section, but we know that Jeff is basically turning into a jerk. We don't know how this is happening, we don't know whether he's being like this to be accepting of his new friends or because he feels guilty about forsaking Bradley, or what. We don't know. But Jeff is turning into the jerk that Bradley was. The difference being that Jeff actually has a team of bullies on his side as well. So Jeff is picking on Bradley along with the rest of his friends and along with basically the rest of the school, and then he has his encounter with the three girls again. And this is where we see that Jeff has truly transformed into a jerk, although it's worth pointing out that even though he has basically become a jerk, he still has that hi reflex that he had before. They say hi to him and he says hi back. Even though he tells them, I don't want you to say hi to me anymore and, go through all that stupid business, he still says hi back initially. So there's still some goodness inside him, it's just kind of buried very deep under the jerkiness. And he has his confrontation with the girls and he tells them off and he treats them badly and he gets punched in the eye for it. So now we see Jeff following the same trajectory that Brad was following earlier. Jeff gets punched in the eye by the same girl and then he blames it on Bradley. He casts the blame on Bradley. The difference being that people actually believe him. His friends actually believe him and they go after Bradley for it, whereas nobody really believed Bradley. It was Bradley's words against Jeff's and they believed Jeff. Well, I should say the administrators and teachers believed Jeff, so Jeff didn't get in trouble. The students believed Bradley. And so now Jeff and his friends are going after Bradley for giving Jeff a black eye, and that's one of the big causes of the bullying that Bradley goes through. And all of this will continue to evolve, and Jeff will continue to be a jerk like Bradley was, right up until their final showdown and their reconciliation, which we will get to in the final section. But by the end of chapter 30, we see the teachers and even some of the students to a certain extent are starting to see Bradley as maybe becoming a good kid, and Jeff is just a complete jerk. Now, we haven't talked much about Carla in this section, but we will be getting more into her character in the next section as she goes up against the Organization of Concerned Parents, or whatever the hell it's called. But we do start to see some early indications that Carla is also kind of an outcast. People don't regard her teaching methods well because they're pretty unorthodox, and people are kind of muttering behind her back about why is this person here, our kids don't need a counselor, blah blah blah, and they don't really like her that much. But that will become more important in the next section. And in the next section of There's a Boy in the Girl's Bathroom, we will be looking at basically the rest of the book, starting with chapter 31 and going clear to the end. If you have any other insights to offer on the second part of the book, please leave them in the comments or a video response, and I will see you next time for the end of There's a Boy in the Girl's Bathroom. Until then, happy reading.